Hi HGTV, I'm Brittany Arnesen. Welcome to my Indiana home. Come on in. I've always been really interested in interior design. Even as a child, I used to rearrange and style my bedroom regularly. I feel like compelled to create at all times, so I kind of like take it out on my house and surroundings, I guess. I'm always like doing creative projects around the house anyway, so I started sharing the stuff that I was doing on Instagram, and the rest is history. So this is the first room in my home that I want to introduce you to. This is our living room. We completely remodeled. We gutted it inside and out. When we initially bought this house, this big space here was actually 4 tiny little rooms. And so we wanted it to be quite a bit more open than it was. I kind of got into the DIY aspect and learned how to do like drywall work and, you know, all of that sort of stuff just from watching my family do it, because my grandparents were always flipping houses, so I grew up watching them do that. Couple of things in my living room that are my favorites. One piece that I particularly love is this antique GE tube radio. It actually still works, or at least it did when I got it for my birthday over 10 years ago now. I'm very much so into like Art Nouveau, like for example this vase, and Art Deco. I love those periods of design. Actually, another thing, speaking of like the Art Nouveau movement, there's a designer, Koloman Moser. This chair I actually built myself as a replica of a piece that he did. I kind of put my own spin on it and used like 2 tones of leather and wove them together for the seat, whereas like his original version has more like a basket weave, I think. So a lot of the DIYs that I do stem from like a need, obviously, like we're severely lacking in storage in our house, or because there's something like designer that is like not attainable that I can't just go out and buy, or is super old. Like for example, you know, I think his chair is like in a museum somewhere, you know? So I want to show you a couple other things in this room before we move on into the next room. This table is really special to me because it came from my grandpa. And then another sentimental piece is this piano that was my aunt's. When she passed away, my uncle really wanted my kids to have it because they both play piano, so that's how we ended up with this 1930s baby grand piano in our house. And then if we move over here, one of the DIYs that I have done is the frame for my frame TV. Super easy, literally anybody could do it. You just need glue and half wood balls, and I just glued them on there. A lot of the times people don't even know that it's a television. If you follow me over here, I had actually gotten this console table from CB2 and it was like perfectly fine the way that it was. Just felt compelled to do something over here and was like feeling especially creative, so I actually painted this wavy snake design here. I just feel like it adds so much to, you know, the overall look of this area. Okay, so this was the living room. Now let me show you my kids' bedrooms. Okay, so this is my son's room. It's basically one big DIY project. Like with all of the other projects in the house, it stemmed from like a need of more storage. I wanted to figure out a creative way to, you know, fit a bunch of things into, you know, just one side of the room. My son's little bed nook here, it did not come like this. I actually made it myself. I designed it and I built it. I framed it out. I figured out what the depth of the bookshelves needed to be on both sides to where it would perfectly fit a twin-size bed. I wanted it to be off the ground so there would be storage underneath. And then I actually built this cornice and I hung it. I did that so it would hide the curtain rod and then also like perfectly frame in the whole bed situation here. And then I added the curtains for a little extra coziness for little kiddo. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you my daughter's room. And this is my daughter's room. It's one of the first bedrooms in the house that I remodeled. It is also one big DIY. I have made or created some aspect, everything in the room. I decided to create her bed situation here because this room is so small. I wanted to make sure that we had extra storage under the bed, just the same as in my son's room. But then we also added the dresser underneath because I wanted it all to be, just in one area of the room, very concise. This dresser was my grandma's. Her and her sister in high school had gone together with the money that they made from working, and they bought this dresser. And I actually still have the original pulls and hardware for it too, but I decided to swap it out. I thought it'd be really cool to add the wavy element in here that I have also added in a lot of other places throughout the rest of the house. One other thing in this room that is really special is actually the wallpaper design, which I actually hand painted myself. My daughter's love of the outdoors and nature and flowers and animals is partially what inspired that design, and then also the artwork in here is all cats because she's a cat lover like her mom, so. Okay, so there's one more thing I want to show you in this room, and that is my daughter's dollhouse, which she's actually to an age at this point where she doesn't play with it anymore. I DIY'd it myself. It was a mid-century Barbie dollhouse. I actually designed a lot of the little furniture pieces in here, including the bed, and we even made the artwork in here together. My daughter drew that. I think she was probably in kindergarten, and I drew that little kitty artwork there. I feel like my daughter's maybe kind of outgrown the dollhouse a little bit, but she's decided to keep it around a little bit longer just for me, which is very sweet. I'm going to show you into the next room now. This is my home office. One of my favorite pieces in here is this pin board because it's a DIY project. I knew that I wanted to have a really large pin board in here, and I couldn't find one this size. So I used 1/4-inch plywood, and then I put cork over the top of that, and then batting, and then this Autoline fabric. This pattern is so fun. I really love it. And then what I did is I built this frame, put the frame around it, and then added the little zigzag as kind of a play on the zigzag design in the fabric. I was one of those kids in high school that liked to make collages and cut things out of magazines and put them all over my walls, so this is sort of my grown-up version of that. The other DIY that I did in here that I feel has really made a huge impact, yet again, storage related, like so many of my other DIYs. I didn't want to spend too much though, so I came up with the idea of doing this IKEA hack. So these are all Billy bookcases. The door fronts here, it just had just the regular glass panes. And so what I did is I DIY'd the window pane grid. I added the curtains because I didn't want them to just be flat panel and just kind of blank and boring, you know? I wanted it to have a lot of texture and just visual interest. And then the other thing in here that I'm super excited over is this burlwood desk. I just love the look of burlwood. It was another splurge, but it was necessary. Okay, so and then the other piece that I want to point out in this room is actually this sweet painting that was done by my great-grandmother, who has always been a huge inspiration to me. She had impeccable taste. I think she is probably one of the main reasons, along with my mom, of course, why I'm as into interior design as I am. I used to love getting lost in her home, just looking at all of her stuff when I was little. That's one of my earliest memories of really noticing a space and like the things that are in the space and like the way they make you feel. I sort of like designed this space around this painting and kind of like pulled from the colors in it for what I use in the rest of the office. So that's my home office. I'm gonna take you back down the hall into the kitchen. Okay, so we are back in the main living area of my home. One thing that I wanted to make sure to point out is this keyhole archway, because it's probably one of the most noticeable things in the space. It's kind of like, you know, a little separation between the living area and then like the kitchen and dining area over here. And when we did the keyhole archway, it was actually for the 2020 one-room challenge. The whole idea is that you finish a space and then you share the process from start to finish. One of the things that I changed for the remodel was these poles, and so I actually designed them, and then my husband was working at a machine shop at the time, so he modeled them in CAD and then created them with the machines that he had at work. Another thing that we did was we put new faces on all the cabinets. We actually used MDF. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but at the same time, like, you know, 5 years later and they're still holding up pretty well, and they were so affordable to create ourselves. Oh, another thing that we did too is we changed the range hood, because at first we had one of those stainless steel range hoods, and I wanted something that kind of just like blended in a little bit more. I decided to do a fluted looking range hood, and basically what we did is we took the wooden closet rods that you can buy to hang your clothes on, and my husband ran it through the table saw to create the half rounds with kind of like a, you know, a larger profile than like the half rounds that you can buy. And another thing, it's an old salesman sample. Back in the day, specialty like furniture makers and woodworkers, they didn't have like the full-sized, fully built pieces. They had just little samples of what they could offer. If you saw something that you liked, you would order it, and then they would make it especially for you. So that's what this is. I actually found it just from searching Art Nouveau on Etsy. I had it shipped to me from Paris, and I decided to use it to store my spices. I think it's kind of cool to think that like maybe there's a full-size wardrobe that looks exactly like this out there somewhere that still exists in the world. But for right now, it holds all of my spices. Okay, so this is my dining space. Almost everything in this area is a DIY. I know I've said that about almost every room in the house, but it's particularly true for this space. For example, the pill-shaped fluted dining table, it's a DIY that I did, I think it was at least 5 years ago now. I'd seen something similar online and couldn't figure out how I could get one, so I decided to make one. The chairs here, I actually took some antique ladder-back chairs and modified them. They were wood at first, and they actually had 3 rungs on the back, and I thought it would be really cool to, you know, to add this sort of like round ball feature to the tops and then also to the feet. The other DIY that I did for this room is this storage bench over here. We really needed somewhere to keep all of my kids' art supplies and craft stuff, and so that's why I created this bench. The kids have had their way with everything in there. I had it organized a few weeks ago. Initially, I had a different type of upholstery fabric on it, and so I just recently reupholstered it. And I was like particularly proud that I figured out how to upholster the back and make the lines look really clean and nice. Not only did I do the paint, I also did the molding design in here. I also added the cornice up here above the window to kind of hide the blinds. Then also this antique chocolate cabinet here. It was my grandma's, and so it's always just kind of like been around since I was little, you know, something that I remember seeing growing up. Basically what it was initially used for was like in a sweet shop somewhere, you know, probably over 100 years ago. It was used to display like candy and chocolate and treats and stuff like that. I just love like imagining the history behind it and like the people that interacted with the piece, you know? So anyway, for this, I stripped it. It's the only time that I've ever attempted to like refinish a piece like that and take it down to like its original wood. I just think it's really cool. So that's it for the kitchen and dining room. Let me bring you into my bedroom. Okay, so this is my bedroom. It actually used to be the garage. We converted it about 5 years after living in this house. Luckily it worked out and we figured out a way to do it. With me working from home, being a content creator and interior designer, I really got to the point where I needed a home office, and our bedroom was so small that we decided that a better use of this space might be for it to be the primary bedroom and, you know, for our old bedroom to be my home office. The biggest undertaking for this space was actually creating the floor, because it was just a concrete garage floor. So we actually had to build floor joists and put a subfloor down before we actually laid down the wood floor here. We also had to do all the drywall work. We built 2 arched openings into the space. There's actually one hiding behind the wardrobe there. Another feature that we actually added ourselves to this room is the fireplace. Very, very cozy to have a fireplace in here. The bobbin molding on the wall there, it's actually just more of those split wood balls. I couldn't find bobbin molding that wasn't like super duper expensive, so I decided to just kind of create the look myself, but I think it was worth it because I really like the way it turned out, and I think it kind of like adds a lot of like texture and visual interest in the room. So the last thing that I want to show you is yet another IKEA hack, also having to do with storage and the fact that, you know, we have a lack of storage in our house. I basically took 2 IKEA Pax wardrobes. I didn't want it to look like I just took 2 IKEA Pax wardrobes and set them together in my room. I wanted it to look like its own piece of furniture. And so what I did is I attached them together, and then I created this wood piece at the top here, and I fastened it in a way to where it would be, you know, flush with the front of the doors. Added the design on the front, and you know, it looks like it's its own like freestanding wardrobe, its own piece of furniture. And I just love how it turned out. But yeah, so just like with everything else that I do, it was just a process of trial and error. I think I mentioned this earlier, like my motto has always been, where there's a will, there's a way, you know? So if you're willing to just put in the work and do the experimentation, then, you know, you might end up coming up with something that you really, really love. Like if you just experiment with it, it'll come to you, and, you know, you might end up loving what you did. Okay, HGTV, thank you so much for coming by. I'll see you next time.